Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to visit with Rick Kelly, who's a crisis management expert. And the reason we're including Rick is, how much did crisis management come into play? We are joined by Rick Kelly. He's a crisis management expert. And during the course of the Sandusky trial and leading up to it, he penned a number of missives as far as how a crisis manager would have handled things. Rick, I'm sure you're like the rest of us, kind of digesting everything from today. And I think the first question that I would ask you is this a classic example of crisis management mishandled, done wrong? Or is it a case of maybe being overly concerned about managing the crisis at the expense of what the aftermath may be?
Yeah. Well, Jack, thanks for the opportunity to be with you. I think the answer to the question is it's a little bit of both. I mean, clearly the university has made a couple of crucial mistakes. Clearly, not alerting the authorities in 2001 or apparently in 1998 was a huge mistake, and for more than a decade that became like a ticking time bomb, and eventually it detonated. And then the second mistake that the university made was that in March of last year, not preparing for the worst case scenario. The Harrisburg Patriot News published an article. There was a grand jury that was in place, and the failure to look at the worst outcome and prepare for it, I think, cost the university quite a bit. Now, since that time, I think they've gotten their act together. I think they've actually done pretty well, probably better than people outside Pennsylvania are aware. But they certainly got off on the wrong foot.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important for us to state that some of the principals have been relieved of their duties, and there's new folks at the helm, so to speak. I found it fascinating, and you refer to it as Speculation Avenue, and in a particular article that I read, you were really applying Speculation Avenue to Joe Amendola and some of the things that he brought up. But I like the way you put it. You said it's a dangerous part of town, not populated by hookers or hustlers, but reporters. They can't write a story about what could happen unless you help them by loaning them your name and credibility. Once you do, you may have trouble getting it back. I think the way I'm reading, and I still have a long way to go in digesting everything, but the way I'm reading the Freeh report, folks like Graham Spanier and Schultz and Curley maybe spend an inordinate amount of time worried about Speculation Avenue when maybe they should have pursued the what-ifs about the victims. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's almost as if they were a little too overly concerned.
Yeah, I agree that might be the case. There's two crucial elements to being prepared for a crisis, and the first are the things that you do before there ever is a crisis. When you begin to map out how you're going to deal with with different contingencies that would occur, and then secondly, you have to be ready to execute that plan that you develop when the crisis breaks out. And for most organizations anymore, it's not a matter of if a crisis is going to occur, it's when. And certainly an institution as large as Penn State is going to be dealing with crises of all types from time to time.
You know State College, Pennsylvania, far more intimately than I do, although I probably, over the course of 30 years, spent a great number of weekends there. I've always said that State College existed kind of in a bubble where it was a slice of Mayberry RFD, a slice of America the way some of us remember it in the 50s, and they were quite proud of it. Do you think that in any way contributed to this cultural shock and the way they mishandled it?
That might have been part of it. As you know, Penn State is one of the most powerful and large institutions in the state, and its shadow goes far beyond State College. I mean, they've got the medical school in Hershey, they've got the law school in Carlisle, campuses all over the place. And you know, in a case like this, almost everybody has an opinion, and almost every opinion is a strong opinion. And I know that there is a lot of community angst. I have a number of friends who are Penn State grads and Penn State fans, and you know, for this kind of a crisis to occur and this kind of a scandal, it hurts. It hurts a lot of people.
Let me ask you about your friends that have a direct connection to Penn State.
Yes.
How are they handling it? What is creating the angst for them about all of this?
Most people hold Joe Paterno with great reverence, and I think that he deserves that. I think that he did a lot of great things. The grand experiment of college football is something to be proud of. But you know, they could never imagine that he would be in a position where he would not do the right thing, as he even admitted himself he did not do the right thing in this case. And so, you know, I think that it creates a lot of conflict for people.
The death of Joe, I think, leaves us all with, again, a trip down speculation avenue in this regard. All we hang our hat on is a brief interview that he did with the Associated Press, where retrospectively he said he wished he had done more. Is this going to be an unanswered question that will forever haunt this issue because he is no longer alive and no longer available to expound upon his degree of regret? Or you know, it just seems to me so convenient for all of us, depending on what side of the street you're on, to say, well, he didn't do enough. You know, simply acknowledging the fact that you should have done more is not enough when you've become the face of an institution. Are we ever going to be able to ferret out answers to those questions because he is now dead?
Well, I think that it certainly becomes more difficult. I think for the people who revere Joe Paterno, you have to weigh the report against what you want to believe about the man. You know, what does that mean? Does it mean you have to discount certain parts of the report? Does it mean that you accept Paterno as somebody who was great but who made some considerable errors? He admitted that he made those errors, and to my knowledge, he's the only one who's done that. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, everybody has to decide for himself or for herself what they believe and how they feel. And in this case, I think most people have probably already mostly done that. You know, it's a matter of reconciling what they've heard and moving forward.
And moving forward, as we continue our conversation with Rick Kelly, who's a crisis management expert, how much of managing moving forward is going to be necessary, and for how long, Rick?
Well, it's not going to be quick, and it's not going to be easy. I believe that the chances that the university has to move things forward and to put this behind it are pretty great. You know, I tell people that you know, you can't communicate your way out of something you've behaved yourself into, and that's the case here. And you know, what I mean by that is that what you do is more important than what you say. And so, you know, what Penn State needs to do is basically three things. It needs to fix the problem. It needs to identify the responsible parties and hold those people accountable. And it needs to express sincere care and concern for the victims. And it needs to do everything it can to make things right for them.
I noticed that you read and you included in, you know, the way to manage and go forward that because the public wants to see accommodation for the victims, that anything that Penn State does, I got this sense that you want to, if you were recommending to Penn State, make sure you don't forget that this is about the victims and not about Penn State.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, you know, I think in terms of expressing sincere care and concern, I think that Penn State has been doing a good job of that. What remains to be seen is what they're able to do to make things right for the victims. And you know that in the best of circumstances, that's an extremely difficult thing to do.
Rick, I appreciate you taking a little time. Rick Kelly, crisis management expert, joining us here. And I know you, like the rest of us, are, will wade through all of this, and maybe the one, it's not even a silver lining, but the lining to this untoward situation is if we can all make a commitment to learn from it and try to guard against it happening again. But we all know that there's no guarantee in this society either.
Well, Jack, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you'd like to believe that as horrific as this has been, that some good can come out of it. I mean, nobody's ever going to look back and say, boy, it's a good thing this happened. But, if Penn State can be a better institution, and if people everywhere can be a little better attuned to sexual predators, and if kids everywhere can be a little bit safer because of this, then we will have gotten out of it about as much good as we can, I think.
Thank you, Rick.